I'm Samuel Miele,
I'm Scott Fishman,
and this is the Student of the 21st Century podcast.
where every single week we're going to talk about all the things that school didn't teach you.
Are you ready to graduate?
Tune in for a new episode every week.
We'll see you there. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Student of the 21st Century podcast.
I'm Scott Fishman,
And I'm Samuel Miele.
and this podcast is going to teach you everything that school did not.
Scott, we met. I'm doing your videos. You've got some creative marketing content. We said, wait a second, I didn't know how to file my taxes coming out of grade 12.
Yeah, and I didn't know how to get an HST number.
It's mind-boggling to me that school doesn't teach this stuff, but luckily for everybody listening and for the future listeners, we're going to do our best as young entrepreneurs, myself being 18 and Scott being
24.
24. We're going to tell you everything that we didn't learn in school and that we learned through the mistakes, hardships, and absolute failures we had starting our businesses. Now, Scott, why did we originally want to start this?
At the end of the day, we just want to teach people, all the things that we did wrong and fix that for the future us's of the world.
That's true.
And, make sure they don't have to fall on their face as many times as we did and continue to do every single day on a daily basis.
It's very true. And don't be misconceived here that you won't make mistakes. You certainly will. But we wanted to talk about the little details, the little things.
Yeah, the things that we never thought about and missed along the way. And, just the little things that'll save you a headache really down the road.
It's like, that feeling you get when you get through an interview or a meeting with somebody, a prospect, a client, a friend, and you say, man, I wish I said that. Or you get in an argument with your mother and you wish you said this because it would have proved you right, but instead the argument ended with her being proved right. This is the podcast that's going to tell you what to say before you said it.
Yeah, and even, like you mentioned about interviews, like when you leave the interview and you think it went so well and you're going, I've got that job. And then, you don't get the job because what didn't you do that you didn't even think you needed to do because you've never talked about it, thought of it, all that kind of stuff. And we'll break down everything in between, how we've seen it, what we've done wrong, and what that looks like.
Yep. And literally everything down to the art of the handshake, the meeting. Today, we're going to be talking about why we started this podcast, and more originally, what qualifications do we even have to talk about these things?
If any.
If any, which realistically, I don't know if we do.
No, but
we just know we've made a lot of mistakes.
Right.
Scott, what was your first big mistake when it came to becoming an agent? Because you were a pilot before this.
Yeah, so a little bit of background on me for everybody listening. I had my pilot's license. I was just finishing up getting my pilot's license when COVID happened, and they told us that nobody was going to have a job in aviation until 2026. And I was looking around going, I'm not doing that. I'm not waiting that long. And I just kind of fell into real estate and where we are now, fast forward 2 years later. But, big mistakes along the way. There's been plenty, obviously.
Scott, you can also count cards. Now, I say this not because, Scott, you're a genius, but I say this because you've got two completely different people. We are very similar, but we are also very different, especially when it came down to the school system. Scott was pretty well a straight A student, knew a lot of what he had to do. He was good at math. I failed math twice. I barely got through science, barely got through coding class. So you're getting both sides of the story of high school. You're not getting the kid that just failed and flunked at everything and didn't care. You're also getting the kid that used to care heavily of what school was because that was where you were headed for the future.
For sure. It's funny because did I care about school? I went to private school. I had good grades all the way through. But at the end of the day, I looked at it, how can I get from point A to point B as fast as I possibly can? And that was really all that I was after. And it's funny because now when I look at business and what's kind of happened, and I know you can kind of say the same from your perspective of what you guys have done with the business, but I always have done things, how can I get from point A to point B the fastest? And it hasn't always worked out the best for me, especially even in the school system and everything like that. But I can't show my work when I do a math question. I can do the math, but I can't actually show you how to get from point A to point B.
Sometimes you don't have to prove everything. Right. And the unfortunate part about school is that it kind of forces you to. And I just don't think that that's a proper way of doing it. Why should I have to show my work to avoid being shown that I was cheating? See, when somebody tells you an answer to something, you take it with a grain of salt and say, okay, fair. There's also going to be the people that are told something and then they just don't listen. And that's me. I just don't listen because I want to do it my way. And if I make that mistake that you warned me about, at least I learned it my way. Otherwise, I would never have even tried. Can you talk a little bit about trying, making those mistakes? Just expand on that a little bit further.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you look at my journey and kind of how I ended up in real estate, I got a position where I was just working with a team and doing all the stuff that nobody else wanted to do and looking around going, well, if these guys are agents, I can be an agent too. And it's the exact same sort of thing I just talked about, getting from point A to point B the fastest. I signed up for my real estate license and I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it as fast as I possibly can. I clicked through every single module in the entire course, didn't read a single part of the schooling to become a realtor, and did practice questions and then read it after I booked the exam. The wait time for the exams was so long that I skipped through everything, booked the exam, and then went back and did it because I was like, you had to finish the course before you could book the exam. So I'd technically finished the course, get this certificate that said course complete, book the exam, but I hadn't actually done the course because it all comes back to how quickly can I get things done? And that's kind of been what I had done my whole life.
Now, we're not speaking to people that are not self-employed. We're speaking to everybody here. This is more just because we were looking back, and originally when I came up with the idea with Scott, it was, wait, school didn't teach me that I needed an HST number after I brought in $30,000. And when I did, I didn't have one. And I started charging HST because I heard that's what I had to do. And then roll around tax season when you've doubled that and you have no idea the complications that brings not having an HST number and charging HST. Yeah. And I remember calling CRA and saying, you never told me that I needed this. How crazy is that?
And the worst part is, do they care?
They don't.
Not at all. It's our problem that we didn't know that we needed to do that.
We'll get into taxes, all of that in another episode. And we're actually going to sit down with an experienced accountant, financial planner, lawyer, really trying to give down the nitty-gritty of the real world and not the textbooks that you're being given. Not saying those are a bad thing. By no means do we want to dish school, but school misses a lot, especially as you get into life without school and just understand business and be in the business realm. There's a lot of things that school necessarily didn't teach you. Now, there are going to be people that argue this, Scott.
For sure. But, even look at it. When you first started, how many clients do you think you lost because you didn't know how to sit and have coffee with someone properly?
It's so true. Plenty. It's one thing even to be a people person. You can be successful at being a people person, but if you aren't good at your craft, you're going to have to learn your craft. Vice versa. If you're really good at your craft, but you're not a good people person, you're going to have to learn to deal with people. That's what we're here for. Scott and I have not mastered, but been experienced enough to be able to give our 2 cents on communication, dealing with people, building relationships, and so on and so forth. Scott, why did you choose the route of being self-employed?
I come from a background of a self-employed family. It's all I ever knew. It's all I ever saw my whole life. And I didn't see anything else. I didn't grow up having parents that worked 9 to 5. I didn't see any of that. I was never exposed to it. My parents worked from home for my teenage years all the way until now. So it's all I ever knew. It's all I ever saw. And the idea of a 9 to 5 job is just not something that appealed to me as much as you and I can say very confidently that we now work 80 hours a week.
Yes.
It's great being self-employed. Self-employed equals underpaid more than any employee will ever be. But that's a conversation for another day.
That's actually a whole episode within itself, as people realize, I can make all this money being an entrepreneur. But if you are truly investing in your business, you're not going to make any money.
For sure. And that's something that we have this conversation all the time, that how much do we reinvest? And if we look at our earnings and what we've brought in gross compared to what we're netting in the first few years of our businesses, it's minimal.
My accountant said to me, Sammy, it's not about the money you bring in. It's about the money you keep. And that hit me. It's a very simple quote, but it hit me in the sense that, wait, there has to come a point in which I have to look at, stop reinvesting so much into the business, pay yourself first, and then go from there. And a lot of business owners, number one mistake they make, at least for a lot, is they do not pay themselves first. And then they realize, I have to take money out of the business in order to pay my mortgage next month.
For sure. And, you just don't see it. And luckily for us, we're young enough that we're going to make these mistakes and it's going to happen.
It's going to be okay.
And it's going to be okay. And we will be able to rebound from it. But at the end of the day, talking to everybody out there, we want to help you avoid making these mistakes. Most businesses aren't profitable for the first 3 years that they're in business. So we can gross all we want, like you said, but at the end of the day, we're not netting anywhere near what we're grossing at this point because we're trying to grow.
Exactly. And it's cool to be transparent about that because realistically, I think it's the biggest misconception. And that leads me into my next question. What are some of the common misconceptions or common questions you get asked when people or you tell people, hey, I am self-employed, I'm a real estate agent?
Well, the best one by far is people love to do the math on how much commission that you make when you sell a house.
Every time.
It's the first thing that people do. It's the first thing that my friends say to me, and they go, oh, so if you sold a $600,000 house and it pays out 2%, like people do the math. You can see it when I'm having conversation with people, it's the very first thing that they do. And sometimes I just slow people down and it's like, okay, but factor in my marketing cost, factor in splits for the brokerage, factor in everything else that goes into actually getting a listing or picking up a buyer and everything in between and what that works out to. And then we talk about the content game and what that looks like for our business and how much needs to go into that. So it's great that we can all do the math of what it actually looks like for a gross standpoint. But when you break it down and realize what you're netting, I mean, it's minuscule compared to...
There's another episode right there is gross revenue compared to net income.
Right.
And those two are extremely crucial to master and understand. And me and you have even talked about this. We're still trying to learn that. Now, by no means are we trying to come off like we're some pros, experts. We just want to share with you what we've learned throughout the years of trying to do this.
And experiences along the way.
Yes, it's so true. Now, with that being said, you can make sure to stay tuned for multiple episodes coming in the future just on real estate law, just on signing mortgages, just on taxes, how to file your taxes. Can you believe school doesn't even teach that?
It's amazing. But, if we don't go the self-employed route, my favorite thing is when people say to me, I just got my your refund at the end of the year when you get your money back. And they act like that's some sort of money that the government is giving them. It's like, no, that's because your employer has been taking money from you all year. You just don't see it and you don't feel it. Whereas we're on the flip side of the coin. We get hit with a $20,000 bill at the end of the year instead, and we owe money. But the difference is we haven't paid all year. So we're not paying our CPP all year. We're not paying into EI all year, all that kind of stuff. It comes off all at the end for us. And that's one of the big things that I have found just briefly on the tax side of things is that, my friends love to say, oh, I just got money back. Like I got $1,000. Like, what do you want to do? And it's like, but that's your $1,000. Like it wasn't free. It didn't just you've been earning that.
It's a mindset that a lot of people struggle with in the sense where when they get a lump sum of money, I actually had a client today. They wanted to say, okay, I'll give you, let's say it's $2,000 upfront for this. Okay. I said, no, I want to split in the 2 months that I'm going to be doing content for you. Reason being is because one, subconsciously, if I receive that $2,000 upfront right away, the biggest issue that will come to play is after a month, I'll realize I haven't had any money from this yet.
Right.
What am I doing?
For sure.
And subconsciously, I will put less care into that work. And I don't want to do that to myself.
Totally unintentionally.
Unintentionally at that. But I explained that to them and they completely understood. And it's something that a lot of people just want to say, oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that.
Yeah.
Delayed gratification is another massive stepping stone to understanding your finances, understanding your workload, your work ethic, how much you have to put in terms of time, effort,
For sure.
everything.
And that's something that realtors are known for across the board, is that you get lump sums of money. And it's very hard when you're not used to getting a lump sum of money. As much as, we pay for marketing on listings, we pay for all this stuff, that's coming out, as we go through the process. And then we get $12,000 in our account in one day in the end. And it's famously known that realtors will get that money and spend it because it's come in. They're looking at it going, wow, that's great. But they don't think about the 3 months that went in to get that money to come in when they had $0 coming in for the last 3 months.
It's almost like you have to say, okay, how long did this listing take me to get? I'm going to take that amount of months and then say, okay, I put that many months into this work.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the $10,000 commission that I get, pay myself over 6 months.
Right.
And then it doesn't equate to a lot of money a month.
Right. But it's so bad, and it's so known that realtors are so bad with their money that there's companies out there that offer commission advancements. All you have to do is give them a copy of your firm deal, and for 2% of your commission, they'll give you an advance on your commission. So it's even worse, because then I do a firm deal, and 3 months later when it actually closes, none of that check comes to me. So the delayed gratification is totally gone. It's instant gratification that you're essentially paying more for, but they know that people are so bad with their money because it's never talked about, it's never taught, it's never broken down how to actually save anything or how to be self-employed, which is why we're here, that these companies know they can come in and offer you a commission advancement and you'll take it.
Exactly. And that's the mindset that I think we want to get people out of. We want to get people into the mindset of managing your income, understanding where your money's going, because at the end of the day, a business runs on money. No
For sure.
questions asked.
100%.
And so with that being said, you have to understand, this is what I'm going to spend. This is what I'm going to bring in. This is how much I budget for equipment. This is how much I budget for marketing. This is how much I budget for my life, my personal life. I think another big misconception or question that I personally get asked is, how much do you work? And a lot of people don't understand the amount of indirect work you put in. Okay.
Yep.
So for example, I film these podcasts, these shows, right? From my own personal being, Meeting Gold. And we'll do them once a week, right? And then on top of that, we'll do Meeting Gold on Foot, where we go on the street and interview random people.
Yep.
On top of that, we also post vlogs every single week. Well, that's work to me. A lot of people would say, oh, it's a video, it's not work. But the amount that is on your calendar for booking in time just to create content, just to schedule content, just to plan it, come up with ideas, build a vision board, discuss with your team how you want to film it, from the start to finish, it's almost like it's more work than the other.
It is. And it's funny because we just did this. We put all of our content plan into Monday.com. Shout out to Monday.com because it keeps my life on track.
And shout out to you for automating that entire thing.
Thank you. I appreciate that because that was hours. Again, but it's exactly that. Hours of my life that I've spent automating this system to make my future life easier, that from the outside, you just look at it and you're like, wow, you clicked a button and it automated the whole process. It's like, no, I automated the whole process and I spent probably 40 hours doing that.
Yep.
And I get the same thing all the time. We post content so much. It's such a main focus of our business. We spent a full day earlier this week planning out our content till the end of the year.
Yeah.
And that was a full day.
I remember when we spent 12 and a half hours filming a 3-minute video.
Yeah.
And we had 2 separate meetings prior to that.
Yeah.
For like 2 or 3 hours each.
Yeah. But from the outside looking in, does that work?
Yeah. Although when you enjoy it,
right,
then you reconsider.
Right. And it's funny, I actually saw a thing yesterday. Gary Vee had posted on his Instagram, I believe, and he posted, are people really lazy? Or if you are saying that somebody is lazy, is it really that they're not enjoying what they're doing?
And you know what? It's actually fascinating that you bring that up, because I remember being in school, not doing any math, not doing my business classes, not doing science, coding class, none of that. And people thought I was just lazy.
Yeah.
I was a bum.
I got it all the time.
Yeah. And people think that, but then when they enjoy something, they'll do it. I'm trying to think of an example. Cooking. I do not like cooking, right? But a lot of people enjoy cooking.
Yeah.
People who enjoy cooking are going to cook more.
For sure.
Right? If you force me to cook,
yeah,
I will not do good at it.
Right.
Because I will feel forced.
Yeah.
The same idea applies to school. If you force me to learn math, if you force me to do science, if you force me to do French for no reason whatsoever, I have no interest in learning it, allow me to make my own choices,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do a good job at it.
100%.
And I think that's where we almost build these robots that think they have to do things that they just don't like, and they get stuck in that rut for the rest of their life.
Which
And
is
they
a
can't
scary
break
thought.
out of it.
And it's such a scary thought to think about working to be 65 and chasing being 65. Like, I'm 24, you're 18.
Yep.
Imagine coming out of school and going, I have to work for 45 years and not enjoying what I'm doing. But people don't see it that way. They see it as, oh, I do like what I'm doing. I'm working 9 to 5. I get my evenings and I get my weekends, and I'm building a pension. Whereas we look at it, it's like, I'll work 80 hours a week and I'm fine with that. But it looks like I'm golfing once a week on a Thursday because that's what I'm doing for work. So it's a shift on what that perspective is of what is work. Work is essentially, at this point, what we want it to be.
And I love that. On that note, I think we're coming down to our crunch time here. So we're actually going to go on to film the next episode.
We are.
It'll be exciting. You'll make sure to stay tuned. But for now, we're going to sign off. Thank you for listening. Scott, thank you for joining us once again for the Student of the 21st Century.